We are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. A man was arrested after allegedly filming Naples Pride attendees in a restroom without consent. He later returned armed to the Pride event, raising safety and privacy concerns.
Canada's new refugee law may block thousands of asylum claims. Advocates warn LGBTQ+ people fleeing anti-queer violence could face deportation without full hearings or meaningful appeal options.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace placed fourth in South Carolina's GOP governor primary poll. The survey result comes amid continued backlash over her anti-transgender rhetoric and policies targeting queer Americans.
House Republicans denied repair funding for Arizona's historic Copper Queen Library for hosting drag Storytime events in the past. This has prompted backlash from Democrats and LGBTQ advocates for targeting inclusive public spaces.
William Paul, son of Senator Rand Paul, apologized after allegedly making anti-Semitic and anti-gay remarks during a drunken conversation with Congressman Mike Lawler at a Washington, D.C. bar. All this important LGBTQ+ news and more this evening on Queer News Tonight. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
Analytics company vidIQ has certified that Queer News Tonight's YouTube channel is the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 12 million views. We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida.
We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in our rainbow family. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight. It is Thursday, May 14th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we will tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show. Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but created for the LGBTQ community. Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America. Hotspots Happening Out South Florida. In 2026, our magazine is celebrating 41 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 14,000 LGBTQ television stories. We present South Florida's major LGBTQ events, including Pride Fort Lauderdale, Stonewall Pride, and PrideFest. Our magazine, events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2026, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voices as our anchors. Together, we host this show to support the LGBTQ community. Let's meet this evening's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Brian Bender. Brian is a true South Florida local. He is an educator, community leader, and strong voice in education, history, and public policy. He teaches in Broward County Public Schools, holds a bachelor's and master's degree in education, and a postgraduate degree in leadership, and serves on the Fort Lauderdale Education Advisory Board. Welcome to the show, Brian. How are you today? What's happening?
Really great, Larry. Thank you so much. We're a small crew today.
Yes.
But we're mighty, and I think we're going to have a really, really great time today.
I think so. Look forward to it.
Yes, very much so. And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Larry Farver. Larry has over 20 years of experience in human resources, acting, film, radio, TV, live events, parade float design, production, and casting. He's also a board member of the West Side Association. Larry, Wilton Manors is all set to celebrate its 79th birthday with Island City Barbecue on May 16th. Tell me, what's happening out?
Absolutely, Brian. Well, the city of Wilton Manors invites residents, families, and friends to celebrate the 79th birthday of the Island City this Saturday, May 16th at 12 p.m. at Richardson Historic Park and Nature Preserve. The community birthday barbecue will feature delicious food, music, and neighborhood fun in one of the city's most scenic historic locations. Additionally, while the beloved Island City Canoe Race will pause this year, city leaders are exploring a refreshed and more inclusive paddle event for 2027 featuring kayaks, paddleboards, and other watercraft. You're all invited to that too. More details about the 79th birthday event are available at wiltonmanors.gov. Stay tuned to the same website to get more information about the 2027 event. Well, Brian, I like to share things about anything going on in Wilton Manors,
Absolutely.
Greater Fort Lauderdale, and Greater Miami. And Wilton Manors is dear to me. And like you, I love history. So when I came to Florida 7 years ago, I quickly I'm learning what's
That
what.
there's no history here?
Well,
or that there is a lot?
That it's a younger history.
It is.
I mean, if you go back to the indigenous peoples,
Well,
that's probably the real true history.
For sure.
Careful how I say that.
Oh,
but
you said it quite right.
yeah, but when I came down here and they said, "Oh, that's a really old house. It's built in 1925." I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I accept that. I mean, I'd rather see preservation than no preservation.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these days I'll do a road trip up to St. Augustine. But in the meantime,
You've never been there?
No.
You're going to love it. Just
No.
don't go in like the dead of summer. It is very warm there. So I've done that before on some grant programs. And I definitely was the only grant attendee there of all teachers wearing a tank top and Daisy Dukes. But
Good for you.
that's another story. They liked it, I think.
I bet they did. I bet there were people in the crowd that did. But again, we encourage everyone. It's open to everybody beyond the borders of Wilton Manors. Come out. Wilton Manors historically has many, many great events. I've attended them and participated in them behind the scenes as well. So please come on out again this Saturday at 12 noon at Richardson Park, right on the drive. We look forward to seeing you.
I'll be there.
Great.
Thank you so much for sharing that with our audience.
Great.
Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Wilton Manors' 79th birthday on May 16th.
I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Florida man charged after allegedly filming men in restroom at Naples PrideFest. According to the Collier County Sheriff's Office, 61-year-old Andrew Sheets was arrested on May 9th and charged with 1 count of digital video voyeurism and 1 count of distribution. A Naples Police Department report says detectives became aware of the incident after the April 18th Pride event when Sheets posted a 40-minute video of this event on YouTube. According to the police, it was shot using a body camera. Investigators say the video showed 2 men using urinals while being recorded through a mirror. The men reportedly did not know that they were being filmed. Sheets later claimed he attended the event to document what he described as, quote, grooming, end quote. He acknowledged entering the restroom while his camera was still recording. Authorities also reported concerns about Sheets' conduct at the event. Detectives alleged he initially arrived carrying a handgun, but was denied entry by private security. After returning the weapon to his vehicle, Sheets re-entered the event and recorded interactions with vendors and law enforcement. Investigators said he later returned to his vehicle, retrieved an AR-15 style rifle, and came back to the event carrying a large sign near the entrance. Naples Pride confirmed law enforcement informed organizers about the event arrest. The organization said it remains committed to maintaining a safe and welcoming environment for attendees and thanked local authorities for protecting the privacy and safety of the community. Sheets is scheduled to appear in court on June 1st. Well, Brian, thank goodness they had security. It reminds us that we had an event, I believe 1 year ago at our Pride event in Wilton Manors where someone tried to get through with a handgun or a gun. And it's so important to be aware, but, there's a lot to this story to, I think, unpack, and while I think the rest remains to be seen, it sounds like this gentleman is a big proponent of the right to carry, and he...
Yeah. Not to cut you off. It's just such a crazy story. So we were talking to our producer before the show started, and we were asking all these questions that probably the viewers are going to want to know as well. This guy's a creep. Let's just get that out there. He's a creep, obviously. If you're going to go and menace people with a gun, what he did was, from what I understand from our producer, is he had a body camera on. He was talking with participants at the event, saying to them, you're all groomers, you're all perverted, whatever disparaging things he wanted to say to them. He was recording them. He was wearing a gun, which obviously he has a right to do. We have a Second Amendment in this country, for better or for worse. It is what it is. And it was a very big weapon. And supposedly what this guy does is he likes to go around provocatively showing off his weapon and saying, well, what? I can't have my gun. I have a Second Amendment. I can do what I want to do. The thing that he got arrested for was not because he was being disparaging necessarily to the attendees at the event and the people working in the little, booths or pavilions. It was that he didn't shut off his body camera when he entered the bathroom. So at first, I automatically assumed he was like just being a pervert and he was, just trying to record people in the bathroom. What it was it was probably the most uncalculated thing he did that day. He just didn't shut off his body camera. He used the bathroom. He went and washed his hands, and then his camera caught him in the mirror and then caught people behind him in the mirror using the urinals. So do I think he needs to be arrested? Yeah, because you shouldn't be recording people in the bathroom, number one. And also he's a jerk. You don't get arrested for being a jerk, but karma served. Is that I think it was karma.
Let's see what the trial brings. I'm looking forward to it. And it brings to mind as we approach our upcoming Pride events, especially with Wilton Manors, and we look at what's going on up in Tallahassee, and officials looking to hold government locally accountable if they're supportive of DEI events in the future. So we have to look at that, and it might not affect the 2026, but looking at things like security and how much money a city can donate, toward or providing the security. And again, it's important that we have a safe event, a welcoming event. I'm glad that Naples Pride went off without a hitch, with the exception of this gentleman, hopefully. I think my understanding was also that there were gay supportive religious organizations there, and he was probably there to give them a hard time as well. Sure.
Just a little anecdote. Yes. It was last year, I was on a bullhorn trying to wrangle some crowds at our Wicked Manors event. I was working for a local nonprofit organization, and we were, manning a gate. And a lot of people were saying, why is the line so long? Why do we have to wait over an hour to get in? Why can't we just go through? And I had to explain to people, because we live in a world where people don't like us. People want to hurt gay people and gender nonconforming people and queer people. I tried to explain to people as funnily, I don't know if that's a word, but in a funny way on the bullhorn, be thankful that people are taking their time getting through these gates. They're being searched for weapons. They're being searched for things that could hurt others. And it's a huge part of the budget. It's huge.
Well, whether you're talking about the community or just, our population and communities in general, I regularly attend meetings in Wilton Manors. And when I go into the commission chambers, we all have to go through a detection and be wanded and empty our pockets. And it's not just because there are many gay people serving as volunteers or elected officials. It's to protect, people who are coming in all around. We're in a state that allows carrying weapons, and, they do reserve the right to say you can't bring a weapon into that space.
Sure. Sure. Well, there's a lot to think about, and I hope for everybody's safety, and just know that if there's a long line to get into a gay event, 9 times out of 10, it's for security reasons. So have a little grace. Let's practice empathy and understand that everybody's trying to keep each other safe, and we have to take care of ourselves as a community. And this guy who got picked up and arrested, maybe it was for something stupid like not shutting off his body camera, but maybe that'll serve as a little lesson to him. Like, don't be such a douchebag, at events where you're more than welcome if you want to be supportive, but you're not so welcome if you're going to be there to give people a hard time. So, in the end, I think it was karma. Karma was served. So,
well stated.
I'm Brian Bender, and let's queer up the worldview. Canada asylum reform sparks deportation fears among LGBTQ plus refugee claimants. The reform, known as Bill C-12, bars people from making refugee claims if more than 1 year has passed since their first entry into Canada. The law applies retroactively to June 24, 2020, and affects claims filed on or after June 3, 2025. Advocates estimate nearly 30,000 asylum seekers have received procedural fairness letters warning their claims may no longer qualify for review. Immigration officials say the letters are not deportation notices, but rather requests for additional information before decisions are made. Lawyers and refugee advocates argue the law disproportionately impacts 2S LGBTQ plus people, survivors of domestic violence, and others whose circumstances have changed after arriving in Canada. Many claimants initially enter the country on student or work visas and later realize returning home could put them at risk because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. One Pakistani claimant, identified only as Ahmed, told CBC he fears returning home after experiencing violence and threats related to his sexuality. Same-sex relations remain criminalized in Pakistan, where human rights organizations have documented discrimination and violence against queer people. Under the previous system, refugee claimants typically received in-person hearings before the Immigration and Refugee Board. Under the new law, many may instead face a paper-based pre-removal risk assessment with limited appeal options. Advocacy groups are calling on the Canadian government to create exemptions for vulnerable claimants, including LGBTQ plus asylum seekers, but no such exemptions have been announced so far. It is such a difficult time we are living in.
Absolutely.
I think that there is a lot going on. I know that maybe it doesn't seem related, but there's a lot going on in Europe in terms of the right wing, in terms of feeling like their countries are being, and I say this in quotes, quote unquote, being invaded by people from the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, from I'm going to just say it here because I think this is what they're hinting at, is they feel as though that there's a lot of Muslim people or people that practice Islam entering into the country. Mm-hmm. And I think that this might be a way for them, although very ill-advised, because I think if you're an LGBTQ plus person, you should be protected no matter what. But I think this is a way of maybe preventing people that would abuse the system or who they think might abuse the system from gaining a foothold in Canadian society.
People who might be falsely portraying themselves
perhaps
as part of the Two-Spirit people, LGBTQ plus community.
I would think so. I mean, that's just my read on it. I don't have any documents to go by, but I know the larger trend of what's, you have people like Tommy Robinson in the UK. You have people, that, in our country here, we have the thing where they say like Jews will not replace us, but in Europe, it's Muslims will not replace us. So there's a lot of finger wagging and a lot of knee-jerk reactions.
A lot of things like that floating around on social media.
Exactly. And I think, maybe the Canadian government, I don't think that they're a hateful people. I think they're actually quite peaceful. I think maybe they have to show their constituencies that they're being a bit tougher on immigration. And I'm only sorry that I'm so sorry, because, they say sorry all the time.
Yes.
I'm so sorry that it has to come down on LGBTQ plus people, that they have to bear the brunt of that. Because I don't think Canada is inherently hateful toward gay people.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So,
I had the opportunity many years ago to travel there. doing some nurse recruiting for a former organization I worked for, and had, the best time up in Toronto.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So anyway, only time will tell. That's just my little conspiracy theory of why I think they might be doing it. So we'll see. And I just feel very terrible for the LGBTQ plus people that are going to suffer because, going home to a country where the laws don't protect you, you have no rights within your home, to be who you are. It's terrible. And
we'll hopefully see that, that we catch up with maybe they seem a little more progressive, at least in the way they pursue this and notification than what we've seen here with ICE and that whole thing going on.
Yeah.
I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up politics. Anti-trans politician Nancy Mace falls to fourth place in South Carolina GOP governor poll. A new survey released by the Trafalgar Group shows that Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace is polling in fourth place in South Carolina's crowded Republican primary race for governor. The poll of 1,089 likely Republican primary voters conducted between May 2nd and the 5th shows South Carolina Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott leading with over 25% support. State Attorney General Alan Wilson follows at a little over 23%, while Congressman Ralph Norman received 19.6%, and Mace drew only 15.2% support in the six-way race. The polling results come as Mace faces growing scrutiny over her political conduct and recent controversies. Earlier this month, the House Ethics Committee opened an investigation into allegations that she improperly overcharged nearly $9,000 to a congressional housing subsidy program. Mace has denied wrongdoing and claimed the probe is politically motivated. Mace has also drawn national attention for her repeated anti-transgender rhetoric and policies. Last year, she publicly described herself as, quote, proud transphobe, end quote, and has frequently used language spreading hatred towards the LGBT community. During her time in Congress, Mace has supported restrictions targeting transgender Americans, including backing a capital restroom policy affecting transgender people and opposing legislation that included protections for transgender inmates under the Violence Against Women Act. Well, she deserves what she gets. Karma's out there. I have to say that anyone who is a representative and is elected, in my book, has to represent all the people. She might not personally identify with transgender or LGBTQ plus people, but it's her responsibility, and to publicly speak out against them is just, she's going in the wrong direction. She should not. She's in politics for all the wrong reasons, like a lot of people who are currently elected in her administration.
She's an interesting case study. She's a woman, I don't have her whole biography in front of me, but from what I do remember about her, she might have gone to West Point or one of these historically male-dominated military schools, and she got through there. And she's just one of those people where she has really hardened in her hatred. Very similar to like a J.K. Rowling kind of a person. She's she's like she's anti-trans. One of her constituents was I believe a gay man came up to her in Target in the makeup aisle, and he was wearing shorts, and she started, and he confronted her, and he said something like, why are you doing what you're doing? She recorded him and then went on a tirade about how he was like a woman wearing little shorty shorts and trying to disparage what he was wearing and that he was a freak, and, just like all these horrible pejoratives. And she's also the kind of person where she turns everything to the subject of sex, sexuality, men, women, the binary, like everything. She has like a very one-track mind, and I want to give her a little grace, although maybe some viewers might say, what the heck's wrong with this guy sitting at the table? Get him off. But I actually feel like, if her story is true, which I have no reason not to believe it, she is the victim of an assault. And I think that, maybe there's a psychologist out there watching, and you can chime in on the comments section. I think when you have a traumatic experience, you kind of have some responses to things that maybe don't look normal or typical on the outside, but are very coherent to you on the inside. If I'm making sense, I hope I'm making sense. So I don't want to excuse what this horrible, wretched woman does and says and who she is and who she's being. I also want to say that I think that there is some mental health instability there.
And you bring up a good point. I really think it's critical now, no matter what party people are in, to really look at who's running with the elections coming up in November. Think about who we have in office, going up to the top and trickling down. Look at people like Ms. Mace and, step back and say, is she really representing everyone? Where are her interests? You could also say, is she hinged or unhinged?
Well, I think her interest should be getting well. Get well, Nancy, because your presence is like being maced in the face.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
And not getting off the story, but we, without mentioning names right now, but we have a local former congresswoman who misappropriated money, and there was some other
She wants to run again.
Yeah, so you have to look at that and say, this woman may be denying in South Carolina that she had a misappropriation of funds, but I'm sure there's a lot more to this individual that we won't cover now, but probably be revealed in the next couple of years.
She's definitely somebody that they're going to make a TV mini-series or something's going to,
with the popcorn, right?
With this woman, because she's just such a train wreck, and she's so vehemently nasty to people. The way she, because she's former, I believe she's former military. And so the way she approaches people is with this certain kind of fire, and she's just very in your face, very aggressive. I believe that there were some transgendered flags, flying outside of some congressional offices, and she made a special point of harassing people or doing something. I don't want to misspeak too much. I mean, sometimes I might, but I want to say that she definitely harassed people with flags at the Capitol, and she just doesn't have anything better to do. I think she's found her red meat, and I think that, coupled with her obvious mental health challenges, I think it's like a wildfire in that brain of hers, and I would definitely take a step back, which the voters are doing, because she's not polling very well.
Yeah, well, let's hope they vote. They all vote out in South Carolina.
It looks that way.
Absolutely.
I'm Brian Bender, and let's queer up the USA View. Arizona GOP blocks library repair funds over past drag Storytime events. House Republicans have denied federal funding for repairs to the historic Copper Queen Library in Arizona after concerns were raised over the library hosting drag Storytime events in recent years. The funding request submitted by U.S. Representative Adelita Grijalva sought $650,000 for maintenance and restoration work at the Rural Library in Bisbee. The proposed funds were intended for building repairs, including roof and floor restoration, and not for programming or events.
House Republicans just stripped funding from this local library because they hosted 2 drag events. Hi friends, Adelita Grijalva, your congresswoman representing Southern Arizona, standing in front of the beautiful Copper Queen Library here in Bisbee. This library is a cornerstone of this community. It's a place where families gather, students learn, and people across rural Southern Arizona access critical resources. And yet Republicans on the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture just stripped nearly $650,000 in funding for this library that our office fought for. Why would they do that? Not because this project lacked merit. It's because funding would have gone towards basic repairs like fixing roof, restoring floors. They cut the funding because the library had hosted 2 drag events over the last few years. This library hosts hundreds of community programs every year. This is an assault on our trans community and everyone's First Amendment rights to have open, accessible spaces where people can learn, gather, and express themselves freely. Public libraries belong to you, to all of us. No community should be punished because House Republicans disagree with the programs the library has hosted. I'll keep fighting to restore this funding and stand up for Southern Arizona communities like Bisbee. Thank you.
Of nearly 24 community projects submitted by Grijalva for funding consideration, this was the only proposal denied. Grijalva accused Republicans of targeting the LGBTQ plus community and using the appropriations process to punish public institutions that support inclusion and free expression. Located in southern Arizona, Bisbee has long been recognized as an LGBTQ-friendly community. In 2013, the city became the first municipality in Arizona to legalize civil unions for same-sex couples. Grijalva says she will continue pushing for the funding, arguing that, quote, denying access to a public library based on identity is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment, end quote. You know, I don't see any other way of really framing this. The library is being punished because they hosted 2 drag events, and they want to let the Republican lawmakers want to let the library and the community know who's in charge. And don't ever do this again. And guess what? You're not going to be able to, because we're not going to give you the funding that you need to keep your building open and up to code. Mm-hmm. You know,
and it's a sad commentary because people like this are using retaliation as a weapon, and it comes down from our most senior leader.
Well, our most senior leader, who is 80. How old is he now? Our senior leader? 80 something?
Well, maybe who knows his true age.
Right. Oh gosh, now we're getting conspiracy theory. It's a terrible day when the good folks of rural southern Arizona cannot access a public library, you know, and it's all because they hosted 2 drag events, whether you agree with drag queens reading to children or not. And you know, there's a case to be made, I guess, on both sides. It's like, why do drag queens need to be reading to children? And the other side is, why not? Because they're fabulous. So I could see it both ways. If you don't want your child to be read to by a drag queen, don't bring your child to a drag event at a public library.
Yes. Life is full of choices.
And if you do want to have your child be read to by a drag queen who wants to enrich their lives and make them fabulous and sparkly, then take your child to that event. The thing is the Republicans are all about small government, but not about small government when it comes to what they perceive to be moral issues. They think it's immoral that people that are born male dress as women, as entertainers, and read stories to children and entertain. So they want to classify that as something other than it is. They want to call it porn. They want to call it degeneracy. Sure. They want to,
you look at pre-colonial America or pre-colonization of most countries that are modern today. That was, two-sex people, whatever you want to call drag, those types of genres. It's been around since the beginning of time.
We've gotten very rigid in our Western mentality. And I'm not saying that the West is bad. You know, we have a wonderful canon of literature, tradition. I get all that. But, tradition is one thing. And also, there's always been drag queens. Yes. There, during Shakespeare's time, the women on the stage were actually men in dresses, entertaining the masses. There's always been gender bending. There's always been, fun times to be had, wearing a costume, having it's so silly. Arizona, Republicans in Arizona, Republicans writ large, get your act together. Really, this is really what you want to do. This is the hill you want to, I don't want to say anything with any words that could be misconstrued, but this is the hill you want to go up. It's like, get a life.
Yeah.
Really, get a life.
Well, hopefully they can find maybe some private donations or funding to get the necessary repairs. And again, their goal is just to keep the library probably safe and up to code and a pleasant place to learn and enjoy, good books. There's no other... Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, I would love a drag queen to read to me because I don't like to read books. I like people to read to me. I have an Audible subscription. I have a Spotify subscription, and I love when people read to me. If any drag queens, if you're in the comments section, please let me know when you're available. I'll give you my WhatsApp. Read me some stories. That would be really good for me. Yeah. I would like that. So.
No, it sounds like a great potential career out there too for all our drag entertainers out there. Absolutely. It might open up some things. drag audible, a whole new division.
Right, like ASMR, you know, when they make those clicky sounds and stuff. If that was a drag queen doing it, I bet they would be fierce and fabulous with the acrylic nails and the stilettos and the...
Bring it on.
Yeah,
Bring
absolutely.
It on. I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up politics. Rand Paul's son apologizes after reported anti-gay and anti-Semitic rant. Republican Senator Rand Paul's son, William Paul, is apologizing after allegedly making anti-Semitic and anti-gay remarks during a drunken confrontation with Republican Congressman Mike Lawler at a Washington, D.C. bar. In a social media post, William Paul wrote, quote, "Last night I had too much to drink and said some things that don't represent who I really am. I'm sorry, and today I'm seeking help for my drinking problem," end quote. The apology came shortly after Lawler publicly described the encounter, which reportedly happened Tuesday night at the Tune Inn restaurant and bar near Capitol Hill. According to Lawler, Paul launched into a, quote, 10-minute diatribe about Jews, end quote, and that he, quote, hates Jews and hates gays and doesn't care if they die, end quote. Lawler also claimed that Paul blamed Israel for the U.S. conflict with Iran and that he would blame any anti-American Jews if Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massey loses his upcoming Republican primary race. Massey is Rand Paul's ally, and his election campaign has already drawn criticism over rhetoric targeting billionaire donor Paul Singer, who is Jewish and supports LGBTQ rights. The bar rant incident was first reported by journalist Reese Gorman of the digital outlet Notice. William Paul has reportedly faced previous charges related to drunken assault and impaired driving. Rand Paul's Senate office did not immediately comment on the incident. Well, William Paul, you need to get your act together, and also, you know, keep politics out, and hopefully this may damage his father's career. Well, one could only hope.
One could only hope. You know, Rand Paul and his father, you know, definitely have done a number with their libertarian shtick, as my Jewish ass is going to say, their shtick. Anyway, when he says the diatribe does not represent him, absolutely it represents you, because alcohol doesn't give you ideas in your mind that you don't already have. I've been drunk once or twice myself. I know that when I say something, when I've had a little too much to drink, I know that what I'm saying is coming directly from the heart.
And your inhibitions are lower.
Your inhibitions are lower. So basically what this alcohol did was it told him, oh no, it's perfectly fine to say what I'm about to say, and it just happened to be anti-gay and anti-Jewish. And those are, you know, the thing is with anti-Semitism, and I do think that anti-Semitism, the term is used an awful lot for things that might just be very legitimate criticism of, you know, a foreign country, and, you know, so there's that. But I do have to say that one trope of anti-Semitism is that the international Jews enter into a country and try to destabilize it through the introduction of homosexuality. So the fact that he's going on a tirade, anti-Jewish, anti-gay, it all fits a larger, older trope of what the Jews are doing to destabilize the nation that you live in. And don't forget, both his father and grandfather might be doctors, but they're from Kentucky. So and I'm not saying anything horrible about Kentucky. I love Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I actually had a friend from Kentucky, and she was wonderful. But I have to say, you know, in the region of the country that they come from, old habits die hard. And I'm sure that there's a lot of anti-Semitism that's rife in the area that they come from. And I'm sure that whatever he spouted off that night were things that he's been hearing his whole life. And the fact that he wants to go after a Jewish funder, I believe the last name was Singer, who happens to be a very rich guy. It's very ugly. It's very ugly. And I think that, I think you should get some help. And, but I don't think that there's any curing when people have these deeply held feelings about a specific group. I think he probably should get his drinking under control, because if you're going to be that outrageous when you're drunk, obviously you can't hold your liquor. That's a problem. But as far as his views go, I don't think there's any changing those kind of views.
Sometimes, too, you wonder how, with the sons and daughters of some of these politicians, including our chief leader, how far the apple does or does not fall from the tree in terms of behavior outcomes.
Sure.
And, so, we'll just have to see where this story goes. Hopefully no innocent people are hurt. And hopefully he doesn't get behind the wheel of a car.
Well, I think the only person that was hurt, you saw that picture of him being posted with his face half open, like his mouth half open. It's, if you didn't tell me that his father was a doctor and his grandfather was a doctor and they both are in the, in the House of Representatives and, in the Congress, I would think he was just another backwoods guy from the mountains of Appalachia. So, that's what his views indicate to me. So I just want to say, hope you get some help for your drinking, and I'm sorry that you hold such hateful views.
Yes.
Not really rooted in reality. So
yeah. LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up the USA View. Fans split over RuPaul's party and dance Instagram video. RuPaul is facing mixed reactions after posting a video about America's political climate. He says, quote, fascism is back, end quote, and suggests that the only thing that we can do is, quote, party and dance, end quote. In the Instagram video, RuPaul blamed decades of education cuts for weakening critical thinking that he believes has led to today's political divisions. The post quickly spread across social media, where LGBTQ users debated whether the message encouraged resilience or minimalized the seriousness of political threats facing queer communities. Some fans defended the video as a reminder of the historic role nightlife and joy have played in queer survival. Others argued that public figures with influence should promote stronger political action. Well, RuPaul is an entertainer. That's how he's made his bread and butter.
Right.
And I remember his show from the early days to what the superpower it is today. And I think people have to stand back and remember that we're all individuals. And, I think, RuPaul represents being resilient during times where many of our people in our LGBTQ community and beyond are being oppressed. So I would need to certainly watch the video, but I have to think, you have all kinds of people now out there with political power. And as long as they're not using it to promote hate that's destructive and to be supportive, there's going to be different interpretations of how it comes out. Rosie O'Donnell has said things. RuPaul, you look at all the other influencers out there. All I'd say to the people who've achieved those things is please just use your power to unite us and promote love and unity and to fight and encourage people to vote in the elections so that we can return to a hopefully stronger society. What do you think?
I love, you really took the high, you did what Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. So I really love that. It was I agree with everything that you said. And also to add to that, being RuPaul does not mean you have to be that smart. It doesn't mean you have to be a political analyst. It doesn't mean you have to be nuanced. It was just a very black and white statement. Absolutely. Fascism's back. Let's party.
Yeah.
That sounds to me like somebody is maybe a little depressed by what's going on. So what do you do when you're depressed? You eat, you party, you do what you do. I think what he's trying to say is don't let it get you down. Just keep enjoying your life, living your life. Maybe it wasn't as nuanced as maybe some of our, armchair pundits would like it to be. But I think in his own way, he was just trying to say, look, the world is really messed up right now. It's really screwed up. Yeah. Enjoy yourself. Just enjoy.
And I think just as an everyday guy, just being on this show with people like you gives me empowerment to feel that while the world might be not the best place, in our country,
it's not.
And it's not the country I grew up in and idealized.
Not even me.
It's going to change, and we're part of that change. So whether we're on Queer News Tonight, we do other volunteerism, we just show up and support. That's what it's all about.
And this is my idea of partying. And RuPaul is saying, the world, we're in fascism, party.
Yes.
I think really we could expand that out to say, keep living your life. I think that's really the message there. I don't know if he was really thinking about it that deeply, but if I'm going to really deconstruct the argument there of just, fascism's back, let's party. I think it's really a call to just continue living in your joy, continue living with what makes you feel good, as long as it's not destructive to other people. And one thing that makes, I think, both of us feel really good is being able to be here and being able to share our views with others. And, I take that as a call to continue on. So
yeah. And I had a great boss once who, my day job has been HR over the years. And he said, his name was Jake. He said, just keep going. And sometimes we had really tough situations or internal clients or employee matters. Keep going. And I did.
And I think that's what RuPaul was saying too. Let's get, there's some things that we hear about RuPaul that might be a little crappy.
Yeah.
I don't think that this was necessarily one of them. So
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Well,
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up entertainment. Pete Davidson reveals wild childhood moment involving his grandfather in a gay porn video. Comedian and actor Pete Davidson shared an awkward childhood memory during a stand-up act that involved his grandfather and explicit gay content. In a clip obtained by TMZ and published this week, Davidson recalled accidentally clicking on a video from the infamous website Lemon Party when he was only 8 years old. The video featured explicit scenes involving older men set to the theme song from the Andy Griffith Show. Davidson said he continued watching out of curiosity until he heard his grandfather approaching. He tried to hide the video by turning off the monitor and sound, but his grandfather demanded to see what he was watching. After the video resumed, Davidson joked that his grandfather immediately punched the monitor, smashing the screen, saying, quote, "Peter, we are never going to speak of this," end quote. Well, I mean, he was probably embarrassed, and I don't think it necessarily means his grandfather was gay or in the closet. I think that, I wouldn't want, my father's very straight. I wouldn't want to look at his phone because you never know the things that come across,
and
it's
I hear you
silly.
Sometimes when you're growing up, but I'm part of, some of my ancestors had the most wicked or dark sense of humor. And I love that Peter, coming from, I believe, humble beginnings in Staten Island, right across the water in New Jersey, is able to have the time he had on SNL, and now he's branched off into other things. But I think it's important to show, the reality that through the generations, these things happen. And no, there was no dark thing. It was accidental. But that's how you grow up and get exposure to the real world.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if it was gay porn, if it was straight porn, if it was any kind of porn, I know that I would be mortified if I was a grandfather, a father, or in charge of a child, for them to see something like that. It would be absolutely mortifying. So while it might seem a little over the top that his grandfather punched the screen and said, "We're never going to talk," it sounds pretty normal to me because he wanted to maintain a certain level of...
And it wasn't violence against Peter.
No,
yeah. So I think it's a nice commentary. I'm glad that, Pete
Cute
could...
story.
Yeah, and Pete could find humor in it.
Yeah, and I think I find humor in it too because I can imagine this, it's one of those things that's embarrassing because you never know. Maybe his grandfather had that because he enjoyed it. And there would be nothing wrong with that. And maybe he had it because he thought it was funny and it was set to Andy Griffith's theme song. And, he grew up watching Andy Griffith. And, oh, my God, I can't believe, that there's, gay stuff happening to the theme. It's, this was a different era, too. When he was 8 years old, I think he's probably around my age, maybe a little older, maybe, I'm 38. So this was 30 years ago. Let's cut everybody some slack, and I don't think there's a scandal there.
Well, I have to say, thank you, Pete, for keeping us all smiling here at Queer News and beyond. LGBTQ 1 Minute News, let's queer up entertainment. Margaret Cho says fear of ICE detention made her reject role in queer series Heated Rivalry. Bisexual comedian and actress Margaret Cho has revealed that she turned down a role in the queer series Heated Rivalry because she feared being detained by ICE while traveling to Canada. Speaking on the podcast I Never Liked You, Cho said she declined the project due to concerns tied to her outspoken criticism of ICE and the Trump administration. She said she admired the creator Jacob Tierney and the project itself. When asked if she could still watch the series, Cho said, quote, "I watched it. I hosted some rewatch parties, and it kills me like it kills me, and it's all because of Trump," end quote. The hosts asked if there was any hope for her to appear in season 2, and Cho replied, quote, "I asked them, we'll see," end quote. Well, I love Margaret Cho. I had the opportunity many years ago when I was still up in West Orange, New Jersey, to see her at a former, now defunct comedy club earlier in her career. So I love that she's outspoken, and we all sometimes, have to make choices. And in this case, unfortunately, we were talking about retribution, and I could see how she could feel potentially threatened. And you have to look out for yourself. I mean, we look at the number of people, especially those who've achieved fame, not just LGBTQ, people who have been sought out by crazy people. And now we have to worry about our own government, who's supposed to be here and protect us, and that we count on based on the founding fathers of our country. I mean, again, I've said it before on the show, and I'm going to say it again. This is the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country, so that people could pursue freedom and liberty. And here we have someone who's achieved great things as a comedian, worrying about crossing the border and being detained and harassed because she opposes the current leading party.
Well, the Trump administration is having the exact intended effect that it is wanting to have. It is sending a chilling effect. Mm-hmm. It's sending shockwaves across our society. Mm-hmm. People are self-censoring. People are self-monitoring. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I don't sometimes say, maybe I'm not going to say that because I don't want something taken out of context.
Yeah.
You don't have to be that smart to be on that side of the spectrum, the political spectrum. So nuance is not their thing, and somebody like Margaret Cho, who is very unambiguous, so, very similar to like a Kathy Griffin, mm-hmm. People like that are very unambiguous about their gripes about what's going on, and perhaps rightfully so, allegedly, as our friend Kathy Griffin would say, who are allegedly correct about what they might say, fear for their liberty and their freedom. And I feel very bad for her that she missed out on an opportunity to be part of something really cool like Heated Rivalry, mm-hmm. because it was being shot in Canada, and she just didn't want to chance it, mm-hmm. based on her political stances. And, some people might say, well, then she shouldn't have political stances, just shut up and entertain, or shut up and sing, whatever they say to artists. But she's a stand-up comedian. Her whole shtick, I'm using that word again, her whole shtick is telling stories. It's being a public storyteller. So, of course, when you live in a society like we're currently living through now, mm-hmm. of course the government is going to be something that you talk about, especially if you have a big platform and you're a funny person, and, people can relate because we're all living under it. So, So sucks to be her, and I don't mean that in a negative way.
No,
it really does suck to be her, because she's
Margaret
stuck her neck out.
Margaret, keep doing what you're doing, and all those other entertainers, RuPaul and all those other folks out there, mm-hmm. speak out as long as you're not hurting anyone and you're promoting humor and things that we need during these times. Yeah. And hopefully you do get the gig with Heated Rivalry, mm-hmm. and we wish you well with that and other successes as well.
Absolutely. LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up faith. This pastor claims liberalism makes men gay. Conservative American pastor Dale Partridge responded to a video that featured right-wing influencer Caitlin Bennett confronting a student protester at the University of Central Florida. The student was participating in a protest urging the university to become a, quote, sanctuary campus, end quote, protecting undocumented and international students from ICE detention. In his response to the video, Partridge said, quote, "Not only does liberalism make men gay, it makes them incapable of thinking, okay? Liberalism is just like feminized politics," end quote. Partridge has previously drawn criticism for anti-feminist and anti-transgender remarks. Earlier this year, he claimed feminism is, quote, a form of transgenderism, end quote, and argued it weakens men and damages families and communities. All right, Mr. Closet Case, if I were seeing you on like Wilton Drive and I didn't know your hateful politics, I would think you were a good-looking guy, and But once I know exactly who you are as ugly as sin, my friend. And we're queering up politics here, so I'm going to say this. I'm praying for you. I really am, and bless your heart, and I love that for you, but don't be bringing that hate near me. Do I think that, the university should be a sanctuary campus? Well, that framing doesn't sound so nice to me. But I definitely think that a school should be a safe place for all people. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that, Caitlin Collins, who's going out there and putting microphones in, college students' faces, students who have not practiced the arguments and are not as read up on the subjects as she is, to play gotcha with them. It's like, what are you doing with your life, Caitlin? It's just such a waste of God's beautiful energy that you should be living your life.
It reeks of Charlie Kirk. I mean,
I want to be careful with that, because, there are some people that really do love Charlie Kirk, and we're going to have a lot of streets named after him. And it is very terrible what happened to him.
Of course.
So I want to have a little nuance with this, just because we are in the state of Florida.
Yes.
And also because he was a human being, but he was also a human being that did dehumanize others.
And just to clarify my comment, in no way do I ever want to see violence or endorse that. What my comment referred to is who he was before the unfortunate.
A provocateur.
Yes. And looking at someone like Partridge, I think that, anyone out there, but the constituents that have supported him and he comes up for office in the future, think about what he said about feminized politics.
What does that mean, feminized politics? You don't like ladies?
But think about that, because some of the best, I think, leaders in our country or people who've run have been women.
Remember the ladies. Remember the ladies.
Remember the women. And, we've had some great transgender people up and coming. Sarah McBride, just to name one that comes off.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I wish I knew more off the top of my head, but I know that there are very talented transgendered folks out there that are doing really great things in their community. You can agree, disagree. You could think one thing about gender, another thing about gender, but I think what we really we're missing the point is that people are people. And I am a person that assumes that when somebody, especially in political life, is coming out there in order to run for office or to do something for the community, they're doing it in good faith. Mm-hmm. And so whether or not you agree with transgendered people, quote unquote ideology, whatever it is, can we all just agree that as long as somebody is not hurting another person and they're not forcing you to change your gender, they're not forcing you to live their truth, can't we all just get along?
I agree, it's 100%.
And it's these people that want to call themselves pastors. I don't know who he's pastoring to, that would want to be led into, hate. It's just such a, hate is like rotting meat, and it attracts all the flies and the maggots, and and you just feed on it and feed on it, and I just want to say, clean up your diet a little bit, just clean it up. It's gross.
If you're representing, no matter what your religious identity is, you have an obligation to bring people together. And if you're attending any type of religious institution that doesn't promote unification and loving your neighbor, or the congregants, or people out there in the world, I think you're in the wrong place.
I mean, even not to bring the Catholic Church into this, because they're involved in a lot of things. Even the Catholic Church, who has doctrines against being gay, homosexuality, transgendered people, they're still getting with the times, in the ways that they possibly can. And I feel that it's the way that this pastor, and I'll use that in quotations, the way that this pastor is really approaching life is very retrograde. It's really, they're trying to take us backward. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to agree with everything, that's here. But it's about not going back and closing the door on other people. You could not understand something. You could say, well, I just don't get it, but okay, then don't get it. Yeah. But acknowledge that people exist, and that there are people that are living an experience and living a life that maybe you're not going to understand, you're not going to get it, but you recognize their humanity. Yeah. And I think that's what this person is really missing is acknowledging others' humanity. And I think that's I think that should be cardinal sin number one.
Yeah, and maybe this is another individual, as we touched on some earlier stories, that has some control issues that maybe a good therapist could help him get in touch with. Mm-hmm. LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up gay culture. Nashville LGBT bar targeted twice in less than 48 hours ahead of Pride Month. The bar named Tracks is located in Nashville's Wedgwood, Houston neighborhood, and according to the owner, the attacks are a form of hate vandalism. Police said hateful graffiti, including an anti-gay slur and threatening language, was spray painted on the back wall of Tracks on Martin Street early Monday morning. Bar owner Stephen Kiss told News 2 that a similar incident happened just 2 days earlier. Tracks has long served as a welcoming space for Nashville's LGBTQ community. Kiss said the vandalism is costly, but will not intimidate him or the business neighbors. Called the incident shocking for the usually peaceful area. Metro Police said that there are no cameras covering the rear of the building, and the investigation remains ongoing. Well, you certainly hate to see something like that come up anytime, but right before Pride. And I'm sure, whoever the perpetrator was intentional. And one of the things that I hate this society is that we've gone to having to have cameras in our homes and businesses. Many of us, did not grow up with those types of things. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate enough to be, while I was a latchkey kid, I was able to come home and during my childhood go into a house that was left unlocked during the day, up to a certain point. Mm-hmm. But I hate to see this, but hopefully the bar gets some cameras installed, especially in the rear.
I'm surprised that there were no cameras in the rear, because usually that's a very nice place to look at somebody.
But if it was, I think our producer shared with us that it was the back entrance of the bar. So maybe
no pun intended that it was the back entrance.
That's right, none, unless you want it to be. It's in your own dreams.
I guess it is.
Well, interesting story. We wish them well and happy Pride to the folks in Nashville and all over the country during this time,
and especially in those red states.
Yes, we're here for you, and please watch Queer
in
News.
Our red state.
Yes, yes. These are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. Our anchors represent the very best of our LGBTQ family. If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Don't forget to join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines.
We need your support. If our community is going to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the broader attention of the whole world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That's the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Larry Farver, and I thank you for joining us on behalf of my fellow LGBTQ anchor here at Queer News Tonight, Brian Bender. We'll see you daily at 8 o'clock to our LGBTQ plus world. We wish you a good night.